Squirrel Hunting Talk of the Day, 21 August 2025. You know, I made reference in an earlier video, a shooting stick, a trigger stick, can help you support the gun during the longer durations that you may have to keep a scope, tracking a scope in the woods, be it in a tree or on the ground. Sometimes that duration can be long, and that squirrel may stop at a split second and you have to execute a shot, so you've got to sort of be ready. You know, you got to get on him. And I try to watch the squirrel's physique, his actions, to try to guess if he's going to keep that head still enough for me to bust it with that rifle. You all can go back and watch some of the videos that date all the way back to August of last year with that trigger cam. There's some good ones in there, okay? Longer shots, shorter shots. Now, what this video is primarily about, though, is what do you actually, if you see a squirrel or you see a limb shake and you catch a glimpse of a squirrel or whatever, you may have to reposition the gun or whatever, your posture shooting. What do I look at? What should you be looking at? You know, the human eye is fascinating. You know, it focuses, you know, on a spot. You know, it doesn't focus on a large area, 50, 60, 70, 80 yards away, does it? Even 30 and 40 yards away, it doesn't focus on a large area. So what do I look at? You may see a squirrel in a tree, and you where you last seen him. So you're like, okay, I thought I seen him stop there, for example. Well, what should you do when you see that? What you should do, now, it don't always work out, but it can a lot of times. And this even goes for on the ground. A squirrel on the ground. What you're trying to do is you're trying to look for a landmark. Is there something in that tree? Is there a certain shape of tree limb? Is there a certain something on the ground that you remember to get you back in the area with that rifle scope? And then when you get that rifle scope up there, you're pretty close and you should be able to find that squirrel, right? But if you try to depend on just the squirrel and you don't look for a landmark or something that stands out, that could be problematic, huh? You know, I watched a squirrel in a hickory tree here a few mornings ago. He come in that tree up in the morning, about 8 o'clock. I don't believe he'd been in that hickory. He come through that hickory, and I done lasered this tree. There's a armadillo hole or groundhog hole in below it. That's what I was watching for, to get rid of that, whatever it was, you know. So this squirrel, he sat down up there. But where I last seen him, you know, I thought he sat down. You know, 125 yards with leaves on is sort of challenging. There was a little fog, not much. So what I did is this tree had this limb that run a certain direction. And I took a photo, you know, a sort of a photo shoot of that with my eyes. So then when I put that rifle scope up there to look at this squirrel, now I wasn't shooting him, season wasn't open, but I wanted to look at him. And it's good practice, by the way. I got on that limb, I could see them feet moving on that nut. Him sitting there. Okay, see, for you beginners out there, that's what you want to try to do, in my opinion. You need to look for a landmark. Certain limb on a tree, the certain shape, the certain size. Is there some kind of colored leaves on that limb? Okay. A certain fork on the tree. A certain rock on the ground. A certain stump on the ground, if he's on the ground. Pick you a landmark that will get you close if you can, and maybe you can't get real close. Maybe you see something and you're like, okay, about 10 or 20 feet to the left's that stump. That's where I seen him left. I seen him to the right of that. Let me get on that with that scope and start bringing that scope around and find that squirrel. See, I don't know what people do out there. Okay. But I can tell you this, you can go watch them videos from last year. Okay, because I showed the trigger cam. And you know, I showed some handheld videos previous years, handheld camera. I didn't have the actual camera on the squirrel at time of shot, you know, and there might have been some people wondering like, oh, this old boy, he goes out in the damn woods. He probably shoots a box of shells to kill 10 squirrels. Well, you better be thinking again about that bullshit, okay? Success rate, when I touch that trigger on that rifle on the squirrel, is extremely high, okay? It's 90+%. And that's on that head. But I'm trying to explain to you in this video what I'm doing. I don't know what other people do. You know, yeah, this is something you have to learn on your own if nobody tells you. You know? Just remember, your eyes only can focus on a spot. And you need to know where you're going with that rifle scope. When you get it back, you know, maybe you ain't got the rifle, maybe you ain't got the gun up. You understand what I'm saying? You're sitting on the ground, or you've done seen the squirrel. You've not even raised the gun up, and you see him run back off the end of a limb, and you think you see where he went, or you see the limb he's on. So that gets you a good place to start to find him in that scope. Now you notice what that scope does. If you'll go back and you'll watch them videos that I put up with that trigger cam, and I believe I shot about 600, I believe I got 657 plus during the late summer, fall, winter season last year. You're going to see quite a few of them squirrels that are up in some limbs. And they're moving around, or they've got obstruction, or or I'm taking that scope, I can see the squirrel, the blob up there, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to discern, okay, where is the head? There's a whole lot of those squirrels I could have killed last year a lot faster. If I'd have just shot the blob and not sat there and try to find the head, I could have killed a lot of them squirrels faster, but I would have been gut shooting them, body shooting them. So that's what that scope's good for. And not all scopes are created equal either, okay? And that 50mm lens on that scope on some of them mornings, that trigger cam makes a scope darker, okay? If I put that trigger cam on a 42mm objective scope, it's going to have a smaller bell in the back. It'll be even darker than what I'm using on that 50mm Element Optics and that Arkin scope. But that extra 50mm is helping me, okay? Especially helping me earlier in the morning discerning where that head is. That can be very challenging. Yeah, just to see the blob, the silhouette of the squirrel in the tree, and it's like, okay, which end is which? Because they can be hanging upside down the whole works. That's going to conclude the video.